Hi, Amanda.
Hello. I'm wondering if anyone else is coming today.
Let's see. Let's wait a few more minutes. One of the topics I wanted to propose anyhow is to change the schedule, maybe to more America-friendly times. Where are you sitting?
I'm in the East Coast, so it's 9 a.m. for me. But yeah, this is not very nice for California, Colorado, the rest of the states.
So let's wait a few more minutes. I've wanted to suggest moving this to the Wednesday late afternoon in Europe time.
What time in Europe?
So I'm in Paris, Central Europe time.
Okay.
Oh, hi, Avishai and Brian.
Hey.
It seems like it'll overlap a different meeting unless we go really late evening, like 8 p.m. for you.
All right, so on your side, okay. Okay, so yeah.
So here is the OpenSSF calendar.
All right. Oh man, so many OpenSSF meetings, incredible. How many of those are you attending?
Oh, I attend the end user ones, the AI one, and those are the only ones I generally attend.
All right, so 5:30 my time would be 11:30 your time, if I'm not mistaken.
So 5:30 Paris is 12:30 for me.
Okay.
So that would be
in the middle of Alpha Omega,
which is perfect for East Coast because that's 9:30 for California.
All right, so I'm not sure whether many more people will join. So I've had a discussion earlier on with John Meadows, I think, and that is what I wanted to start sharing. So the first is regarding kind of what we looked at so far. So if you remember, we were looking at this architecture diagram, and we were only focusing on, on all the different data flows on how the malicious components end up on the different systems of some larger development infrastructure, on the developer machines, on the Git server, on the build machines, and so forth. And discussing this with John, turns out that he sees a little bit of a larger scope. So basically, it's true that those consumption of open source components and third-party components is just one way of getting malicious software on the respective systems, which can do some which can do some damage there. But according to John, he sees that even if such malware comes into a network by other means, that would be still in scope. And the question is, what could those malware do with the source code or the binary code of the different systems? Right, so the scope is a little bit larger than what we were focusing on the past few sessions. I found this very important because in the last meeting, I had kind of the feeling, well, if we only talk about those Redis data flows, we end up always with the same problem, which is, okay, you should take care of what you consume, which is kind of evident. And so you should have approval processes and maybe you check the signatures and God knows what. But that's about the same thing, no matter where those components flow into. And so he sees the scope a little bit larger. So even if the example, I think we discussed this a couple of times, even if there was kind of a phishing attempt on the administrator of the Git server, the question would be, if this guy gets a malware on his computer, what can this malware do with the Git server, considering that it is acting on behalf of the admin of the Git server, right? So I find this very important, which will, change a little bit how we discuss the threats. First thing. Second thing is, and I was discussing this quickly with Amanda already, he was suggesting or asking whether we can change the schedule to another time frame, because John finds this whole topic very important, but he cannot really attend. And so he was just raising the topic whether there is any possibility of getting it to some other place. Obviously, this has to be kind of a decision by a larger group, by the participants. And so, I wanted to raise this topic. This one here, or the other one at 10 o'clock, right? So for those people that attend the majority of the OpenSSF meetings are the available slots.
Yeah, I'm perfectly fine participating at a different time. We historically have done like a doodle poll to make sure that everybody's interested, gets a chance to express what their best time availability is.
Well, then I do this.
I'm fine. And I could even go early. I personally can go earlier if we need to go like an hour earlier.
No, I think it's already, as Amanda said, it's already difficult for people on the West Coast, and going earlier would make it even more difficult. So I will open this doodle poll so that everybody has a chance to express his or her interest. Right.
And then like the C and C++ compiler group, I don't see, aside from Avishai and myself, I don't see a lot of overlap. But yeah, put the poll out. I'll be glad to vote. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you. Right. And then the last topic. So I think it would be nice to have somebody in the past editions, I was kind of running us through the diagram, right? And with the taxonomy and all the different ways to inject malware into open source projects, I definitely have some background there, but I'm not sure I'm the right guy for really moderating a threat modeling workshop. I participated in a few, but I was never a moderator, which is kind of a slightly different skill. So it would be nice if we find somebody who has more experience in really running and moderating this whole business. I'm happy to contribute and run through diagrams, but I'm not sure I can really be the lead moderator in this threat modeling workshop. Wanted to raise this as well. Good. I think these are the most the topics. Yeah, please. You raise your hand.
No, I haven't opened. I talked with a good friend of mine who is a developer security coach for a large bank in the US. Mm-hmm. So he deals with this in a large enterprise, kind of like Jonathan does. So I'm going to be luring him into this call to help collaborate with us and talk through some of these problems. So he's got like 30 years of developer experience and about 15 years of security coach experience. So I think he'll be a good asset for us. And then, for the moderator, I can help. It's been a long time since I've led a threat modeling workshop, about a decade. I'm a little rusty, but I'll do whatever I can to help out. And I agree. It's nice to have somebody taking notes, maybe somebody presenting, and then somebody kind of leading the conversation. So however we can divide up the labor, I think we'll get done faster.
Perfect. All right. That being said, following our last week's session, I cleaned up a little bit the diagram. So I added this, other data flow that was missing. So now it is becoming more clear that there's, of course, also a lot of open source third-party stuff ending up on the Git server. And I cleaned up a little bit the notes as well that I took during the last session. Clarify scope, right? We were saying we focus only on open source versioning control systems, in particular Git, and we ignore all those enterprise commercial versioning systems, which basically also frees us to think of GitHub apps of those different kinds. So I think I still have it maybe in the document, but I will just delete this because it means it is out of scope, because we don't have any of such apps in the Git. Right. Let me just open up the page. Yeah, and then Crow, maybe you can, you remember last time we had this quick poll during the next workgroup meeting on how people run Git in their environments. I'm not sure whether you had the opportunity to run this poll. No, because you remember there was this discussion raised by, I think the point was raised by Victor. He said, okay, how do software development organizations operate Git internally? My suspicion is most of them run it by convention in a central fashion, where just by definition, one of the Git instances is the master, even though this is only through convention, not through kind of setup or configuration.
I think when Scott comes, he'll give us some good feedback on that. I can reach out to some other folks. We also can lean into Tracy Reagan is a big participant in the foundation, and she works with the Continuous Delivery Foundation, which is like a sister foundation to the OpenSSF, and they focus on CI/CD. Right. So she might have some insight into what real customers are using. So I'll reach out to her, and then when we do the doodle, I'll make sure Scott is on that so that he can sign up to participate with us. But I'll ask my network.
Right.
Okay. And I guess Jonathan also, we probably could ask him, can we talk with your source code management folks at the bank potentially? That's another good example. We probably need somebody that isn't in a bank, like a insurance company or a retailer maybe.
Yeah, but I think we will probably end up with what we have speculated about last time, which is most people will run it that way, and the Linux kernel is a very exceptional project in many different ways, right. I suppose. All right. Having said this, no time for the poll. Maybe we can revisit and extend a little bit on those on the threads that we have started with last time on the source code management. First of all, or maybe are you all on the document? Shall I share? How do we do it? Any preference? Did I drop a link, please? Okay, sorry, I didn't see the chat. Share, copy link.
Can everybody see my screen?
Yes,
is it the right one?
Yes, this is the right one. Yes, exactly. Now go just to the source code management system below. And this is where where I added my scribbling and notes last time. I think just to make this, I will select this to be removed out of scope. This is kind of some notes I took related to using Linear app in GitHub Enterprise to configure through webhooks or GitHub application, and these kind of notes on that there are different kinds of applications. I kept it in because I didn't want to silently remove stuff from the document. But now that we have discussed this, I think it's okay to remove this. Other than that, I would like to discussing those threads. So we ended up saying last time that possible problems here on the source code versioning control system could be kind of wrongly configured instances, Git instances that would allow unauthorized people. And considering what we have said in the beginning, basically any kind of attacker who got into your network could install other stuff, could extend your Git instance, right? That could be plugins, could be post commit hooks or the thing, or such things, right? This is the one. The second one is the not so overly exciting thread that basically you should take care what to install on those Git instances, because you could also consume malicious components. So it's basically the same thread that occurs on every other system. You know, take care what you install. Now with what we have said in the beginning, what are other possible ways that an attacker who gained access, who entered your network or who entered an organization's network, could tamper with the versioning control system in order to kind of either exfiltrate or maybe change the source code managed by that system? I guess, yeah, thanks, Craig. I'm not, so I think one way probably would be to perform commits impersonating either this would be more probably a threat on the developer machine, right? So if the developers end up malware, then that malware could impersonate the developer and include commits on his behalf, right? So then maybe let me add this here.
I think that's the most likely one. You know, with all the ransomware and phishing attacks, I think that's the most likely attack you'll see.
To add commits on behalf of the developer. Right. I mean, this exfiltration, again, happening on the developer system is the exfiltration of the cloned repository, basically.
Potentially internal corporate data, depending on what their policies are on their data management. They might have a clone of a production database for testing.
Okay, so this, right. So this is not any longer the source code, but here you talk about basically test data, which is, or also test data that is on this version controlled. This is what you say?
Or the version control has access to, you know, for testing or whatever.
Yeah, well, but the version control says, so if you talk about Git, it wouldn't have access. So that would make sense for the CI/CD build system or so pipeline, not so much for the source code versioning control system itself, right?
Do we want to put like CI stuff in scope?
Yeah, this comes at a later stage. So we have the build systems and stuff,
Gotcha.
but we will move to those systems maybe at a later point in time. So exfiltrate the cloned repository, which can contain proprietary source code or sensitive data such as test data
or secrets, keys, credentials.
Some from production systems. I mean, that should be very bad practice, but okay.
You'd also harvest the credentials or secrets.
Right. So this would be, and this is something that is happening, mostly on the developer machine, right? Or on the, So this would be secrets that were accidentally committed into the source code.
Which
repo,
happens
right?
all the damn time.
Yeah, I know. And then also, but this is something different. So this would be exfiltrate the kind of credentials stored on the developer machine. So here you rather talk of the SSH keys or the like in the user's home directory. All right. Good. So I wonder, so how, I remember, this reminds me of this PHP attack again, which took place 2 years ago or so. I think here was this, let me try to get this straight again. And I wonder whether this is maybe something that we can highlight as a separate thread related to the source code management system. I think there was the problem was that the Git was configured such that you could you use it, authenticate using SSH and HTTPS, and then only one was properly access controlled, and so the attackers managed to basically commit something and change something in the lesser controlled way. Was this PHP access control attack? I was just quickly searching this. Crow, go ahead. Don't
I was going to say, since we're talking about the developer workstation, what if it is a extortion attack? Somebody does ransomware on the developer's PC and coerces them to do malicious commits. Push this package up, or we will not. We've encrypted all your data. You'll never get it back.
Would that fall under the second bullet in this page? Add comments on behalf of?
It's a little bit different, right? So here in the first case, this would be just silently committing stuff, while this is very visible and a kind of explicit, right? Asking, basically prompting, showing a prompt apparently to the user as they do in these ransomware attacks, asking him to do this and that, commit something malicious, otherwise it will be all, I don't know, encrypted, deleted or so. I've never seen such a thing, but so this would basically be, okay, I can list this.
Some type of blackmail, where either that they've encrypted the developer's environment, or they have obtained sensitive information. And they are threatening to leak publicly about the developer if they don't do what the threat ad,
okay, so
like blackmail.
So basically, malware running on the developer machine blackmails the developer to have him or her commit something. But yeah, okay. Using, I don't know, confidential data found on the machine, or threatening to encrypt it. Right? Okay. All right, so this would be maybe the case where, what is the software again, which is kind of automating the, okay, it would be again GitHub, doesn't matter. All right, but here for the threads, for the threads on the source code management system, I just wonder, I mean, of course, any malware or any attacker ending up in the network could also try to exploit any vulnerabilities of such repositories, right? And I think there were a couple not sure. I didn't look. I never looked up kind of a CVE database or whatever vulnerability database for Git or other, or Mercurial or other version control systems. But I guess this is also a very feasible direction to take.
Yeah, we could quickly get that. It's a large software project. It's absolutely going to have vulnerabilities.
Yeah, exploit vulnerabilities in the Git server itself or any of its plugins / extensions.
And you could look to see what the relationship is with lowercase git to GitHub, GitLab. Like, is there any kind of lag between if the Git software has a vulnerability? Is that inherited by the kind of clones or not? And there might be a lag between, how quickly those security teams could ingest and test that.
Okay, well, this is kind of, I guess this is the usual business when it comes to vulnerabilities and patching vulnerabilities, right? So, so there will be this race for unpatched vulnerabilities.
Yep.
And another thing I just thought of, I mean, one possibility, of course, is to kind of make a commit on behalf of a legitimate Git user. But let's say they run Gerrit on top of Git in order to have these approval workflows, what have you. Another scenario would be that the malware is basically approving something on behalf of another Git user. So suppose there is this 4i rules for commits flowing into the main branch or so. One could be basically doing the commit and the other one could approve. Approve change requests on behalf of the developer. No.
For the source code system, do we care about server misconfiguration?
I think we kind of had this somehow. Yes, we basically said that.
There it is. Okay, right. Thank you.
And here we just had, so just server misconfiguration in the sense, maybe I make this more clear, in the sense of people, unauthorized people have the possibility to install stuff on that Git instance. But I guess this can also be maybe even extended to change other Gerrit, for example, Gerrit settings, right? So server misconfiguration. So unauthorized people install that. Change approval workflows or access control settings.
Would we care about like denial of service attack? If the server isn't configured correctly, I can do something and make it fall over.
I think denial of service was something that we said in the very beginning. I remember a statement from Jacques saying that then we hadn't to need to care for all the crazy events that could eventually result in unavailability. So we kind of excluded availability from the goals or the properties to consider. So what could be other sneaky ways to tamper with the Git server?
So like Garrett's the workflow on top of the source code, right?
Yep.
And is Garrett stored within, like the Garrett workflow, is that stored within source code management?
I suppose they have their own. No, I don't know. I would speculate about it. So question is whether they have maybe a dedicated database, which is again configured, and whether people could, just change the database. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Potentially you could change the workflow, or you could even just read the data and get a sensitive business process or intellectual property information. It's something that's part of your unique workflow. They might be able to get extra intelligence about the network potentially.
You mean some organizations, the kind of the workflow configuration of some organizations is their competitive advantage and consider this sensitive by itself? Maybe.
Possibly. I know the bank I worked at, we considered our process as confidential and not private or private.
Okay, so then
if another bank figured out a faster way to approve loans, that they potentially could siphon away customers if it's kind of a business.
This would be a business process, and I completely agree. There's some that they are very sensitive, but maybe same thing holds true for the development workflows that are kind of implemented in such systems. Yes. Okay, so how do I write this?
So maybe they're able to get information about business process or personnel that may lead to additional second or third stage attacks.
So leak of information about personnel or development workflows.
So if I'm the developer and they compromise my account and they see that every commit that I try to do has to be approved by Avishai, well, now that Avishai is their next target.
Yeah, leak of information about personnel or development workflows or personnel and responsibilities, right? So maybe there is kind of the lead architect or so is the guy who always has to approve a certain pull request or change request. And so, yeah, personnel roles and responsibilities, or development workflows, which could give rise to later.
Because your code, you're going to talk about the roles for authorization. So you'll be able to potentially see that information. That every cashier has up to $500 approval, but if they need to go higher than that, it has to go to a manager. So that'll be in your business logic. So they'll be able to see that information as part of the authorization lists.
Yeah. So in fact, you're that's all very right. Also, I just thought of if you happen to have access to Garrett and can read configuration information from its database, maybe you see even kind of unprotected branches. Mm-hmm. And this is maybe where you can commit something to without any review and so forth. So there's a lot of juicy information that can be used for second stage later activities. Kind of branches, product and product line information. all of which could give rise to later second stage. Such information could be stored in the Garrett, or is there any other kind of workflow?
It's been too long. I don't know.
Approval system on top of Git?
Probably. It's open source. There's probably 100 of them.
Git or other workflow systems. Okay. Yeah, that's very nice.
You're going to have all the information about, the infrastructure as code. So your like production configuration, potentially like AWS S3 keys, that type of stuff, that all potentially might be in there if you don't have good secret management stuff.
So that should be somewhere here, right? So this is, yeah, well, no, because this is relevant for the clones, where the clones end up. So this would be again a thread realizing on the developer machine who cloned. All right. Okay, yeah, this is again.
Yeah, just like production information on production setup or deployment.
Mm-hmm.
And we used to have 3-tier networks. I don't know that they still do that anymore with Kubernetes.
Weiß ist welche Temperatur?
Just give me 1 second, sorry.
Back in days of yore, you have your test network, your user acceptance, your QA, then user acceptance, then production. So you'd have the multiple networks you would deploy code to. I don't know if it's still a matter of course now.
Yeah, so here, I just wonder whether, so yeah, so I listed it like exfiltrate production and deployment information that wrongly ended up in the versioning control system. Is this a good summary, or do you want me to?
Yes, no, I think that's fair.
I just wondered, in the same sense that those approval workflows can be maybe circumvented in order to make something enter the production branch or the main branch of the repository, maybe in the same way, it can be circumvented such that something is deployed automatically in production just because it is passing certain workflows, but maybe this is more relevant than later on for the versioning control system, I guess. Sorry, for the build server and build pipeline, not so much for the versioning control system. Yeah,
so how would you quantify this scenario? So a bad actor is able to get a developer to commit malicious code that alters the production configuration so that it's easier to attack once it is actually live and can access production data. How would you quantify that type of attack?
You mean whether I would make a difference in regards to changes to the source code itself?
Yeah, so the attacker gets the developer to change the source code so that once it is pushed into production, it alters that production network to make it easier to attack.
I mean, this could be as easy as downgrading a dependency, right? So rather than, I think this is, I mean, here in the sense of configuration as code, I'm not sure whether maybe we can treat code and configuration really the same way.
I would hope configuration has a slightly higher bar for checking and committing.
Yeah, but let's say a dependency declaration. Is this code or is it configuration? It's somewhere in between, no?
But I think until now we treated configuration as code, or haven't we?
Yeah.
Specifically for referring to dependency configuration.
All right, so I keep it like it is. I don't add an additional item for, I mean, we still have exfiltrate production development, deployment information, but I wouldn't know what to add any further now.
Okay, that's fair.
Or maybe not, maybe I'm just, I don't know. Yeah, all right. Yeah, I like very much the idea to basically crawl through workflow management systems in order to understand your developer workforce, right? Because that would also help you to identify individuals that you can attack in very different other ways. Right, so for spear phishing attacks and or maybe real life blackmail attacks and or not real life is the wrong word here maybe, but more classical blackmail attacks, let's say.
Classic.
Good. Let me think. Yeah, I wonder, I mean, there was this discussion whether you can basically rewrite the Git commit history, right? So I wonder whether this is one, because I came across this in the context of leaked credentials. As you say, they end up far too often in repositories. And what developers or people typically do is they just, invalidate the respective credential, they deactivate the API key, whatever it is. But another way of getting rid of those is you can rewrite the history, but the problem with this is that it is basically invalidating everybody who cloned the repository before, got his clone corrupted, but it cannot work any longer on the clone. But maybe this is not so. Maybe this doesn't matter so much, and still it's a feasible thing you could do on once you're on the Git server, on the leading instance, so to say. So like I think
with any kind of attack, typically the bad guy wants to clear their tracks. I don't know about what the capability within Git is, if you can rewrite or modify the log. And a compensating control would be ideally you have off server, like a syslog or something you're exporting to Splunk or something out off the box. So you would have another copy.
Yeah, basically, I think it means to rewrite past commits on a previous state, which is giving you new and unique commit identifiers again, which is rewriting then this history. But then suppose this is happening in a bigger organization, maybe some developers just shrug their shoulders and say, well, something happened here, maybe just clone from start and this is where I continue.
Yeah, I can see that.
It's not so, I don't find this so unrealistic. Okay, so rewrite Git history on central. I feel sooner or later somebody will come back to this central Git instance saying that it's not a central versioning control system. But okay. On the
federated.
No, I put it in quotes. Maybe that is passing the message more easy on the central Git instance.
And thinking about this from like a SOC security operations center perspective, do large enterprises ingest and track this kind of stuff? So is there somebody watching for like a malicious rewrite of the commit log? I don't think it's a problem for us. I'm just curious. Is that a thing for a SOC?
I know that one company basically, but they were this is again GitHub Enterprise, and basically they have a push log. So they basically log who pushed stuff to GitHub, and from which IP addresses. And so this pusher log or push log, whatever the name is, has been fed into Splunk, I think. But I don't recall that they use really at the history of commits. I don't think so. Good. I wonder what else. Just wonder whether there's anything related to fiddling with the certificates of the Git instance.
Awesome. We probably could lean into Salsa and S2CTF to see, like S2CTF did a kind of has some threats and controls. So we might be able to also take a peek at that and see if they have any other ideas around SCM.
So
also maybe at the SCM best practices.
Yep, that too.
You can find something there. I'm just looking there.
So what was it? What is the other acronym again?
S2C2F.
2F like this?
Yeah, that's a so Salsa is focused on kind of the factory, the open source factory of how the software is made. S2C2F is focused on consumer consumption of open source. S2C2F. So it's a consumer focused supply chain review, and that's Jay White and a bunch of other folks work on that, and they actually did a pretty exhaustive review, and they have some suggested controls. They map to a couple industry frameworks. So yeah, we can take a look and see if they have anything around source code management protection.
Let me just go to and check at the proper links here. S2C2F. Secure supply chain consumption framework. Okay. I think I've heard it. I didn't read through it. I heard of it, but not under this acronym.
Yeah, but that's something we can take a peek at and see. Is there anything we haven't thought of yet? Because I know when you first were talking about the taxonomy, did you and the team talk with the CNCF? Did they have some similar list? No.
They had I think we not when we created this taxonomy, but I think John pointed us to one of the guys at the CNCF, and we went together through an Excel sheet and were able to map most of the threads that they have identified to different vectors in the taxonomy as well. I could look this up, but there was an exercise. Who was the guy again? I forgot the name.
But it sounds like the taxonomy had good coverage, and nothing new extra.
No, I don't recall that we really missed anything there.
Okay.
There's a newly formed repository architect type of a working group, just formed a couple of weeks ago in the app delivery tag. Maybe you can get something from them.
Is that over at the CNCF, Victor?
Yeah.
Can you post us the link so I could, rather than trying to remember the name that you just gave or the description?
I'll find that meeting link. Yeah.
Awesome.
Okay.
Thank you.
So. Oh, no, vector. Maybe with a C.
And then Avishai posted a link that the best practices working group is working on a source code management best practices guide. There might also be some things in there we could look at. He put a link in the chat.
Yeah, I mean, this after the end, I think this is the overall goal of the exercise, that we try to see where are gaps, where do we miss such guidelines and activities, and where not. So this hints at the versioning control system is fairly covered by existing activities.
Maybe, yeah.
But no, this is again the wrong one. I wanted to have this one here.
And the best practices group isn't thinking about it from a threat perspective, but there might be something there. We said, oh, well, why do you have this control? It's this attack vector.
I just wonder here when it comes to I had to think of the certificates again here. I think we had this idea of redirect developer traffic to attacker control resources to DNS spoofing or similar, maybe with the intention to obtain credentials. It's kind of.
I just posted that work group. It's not focused on security. It's focused on like artifacts, related anything artifacts, I guess, repository.
Okay, take this.
And like your redirect scenario, Henrik, that we're inside the garden wall of our network, and we've brought everything in already. So would it be possible for a developer to get redirected outside from the internal system? In a large enterprise, I agree that's a problem in a small or medium company for sure, that they don't have a centralized SCM. But theoretically, everybody's pulling from the authorized source in this scenario.
Yeah. So where would you add this? I find it. So here, and so would you add this here? So the question is, because an attacker could also set up some other resource within the network, right? So
yes,
must not be external to the company networks.
That is true.
So let me just add this, which
here's as good as anywhere for now.
Yeah, which could be inside or outside the company's network, let's say.
Yeah, especially like if you're a malicious insider and you have administrative access, you can stand up an internal server and redirect folks.
Okay, let's keep it here. All right. I still have the feeling the vague gut feeling that we're missing a couple of threads here on the source code management system. Maybe as an exercise for the next session, I will go through one or two of those links here and find and see whether there's anything.
Okay. And then we don't have a mailing list for this particular group, right? But we have one for the larger end user group.
Yes.
So I would send a note to the end user working group mailing list saying, we've made some progress. We'd like additional sets of eyes. Could you, look through and provide suggestions or comments if you have things that we might have overlooked so far?
Yeah, I'm not sure it's in a shape that can be reviewed easily, to be honest. Maybe Crope, you can, if you, in general, I like the idea, but I'm not sure whether, again, the write-up is good enough to be shared. Maybe you can have a look and read through it and make an assessment of that.
I'll do my best. Today is busy. Maybe Thursday I can have a chance to do that, read through and do it. I, speaking of busy, need to drop so I can get a little more coffee before my next 4 hours of meetings.
All right, that's very important. I need to get my car to the garage. All right.
Oh, and Hendrik, I had a question for you. Do you mind if I pull this threat model into the OpenSSF Google Drive?
Yeah, no, not at all. I was asking Crope for such a thing at some point in time. Yeah, bye-bye.
I forgot.
No worries. Yeah, please do so. It doesn't need to be in my, on my Google Drive. Never wanted this. And
okay.
Yeah,
I will do that.
Perfect.
Thanks.
Thank you so much, Amanda. Bye-bye. Have a good day.